What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and today we are continuing our 2019 draft prep by giving you my top 10 cornerbacks in the upcoming 2019 draft class. And it's a good class. It's a good class for corners. I don't know how well the back end is going to be. I don't know how much depth there is. I feel like if you're going to want a cornerback in this year's draft class, you're going to want to be picking one up within the first 4 rounds. And most of the guys that we're going to be talking about today, even the honorable mentions, should be going in those first couple rounds. And I think, in my opinion, maybe the most impressive corner that I've seen over the last 2 to 3 years is declaring this year, and we'll talk about him way up at that number 1 spot. But before we jump into the top 10, I do have 4 honorable mentions, and these are guys now, because we are doing roughly, the mid-season as we're getting to the back end of the college football year. Plenty of things can change between now and when we get everyone that's like the underclassmen that are set to declare and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if any of these 4 guys I'm going to talk about as an honorable mention could crack the official top 10 when all is said and done. So first up, we have Michael Jackson from Miami. I think originally in my preseason he was definitely in the top 10, maybe even top 5. I don't know, man. He just looks somewhat limited as an athlete this year. I don't know. I've seen 2 games of Miami, and he hasn't been impressive. Versus last year, it was a turnover chain. Everyone on that defense was firing on all cylinders. So maybe if he can finish out the year stronger than what he has to start, he could get himself back up into the rankings. We have Brian Peavy from Iowa State. This guy's really underrated. I know he's a Pro Football Focus darling. A lot of people thought he would declare last year. He's still in there, still playing at a very high level, and I think right now he could be very well a late 3rd rounder. We got Clifton Duck from Appalachian State. Awesome name, one of the best names, and he has uber production the last couple of years. Undersized, would have to be a nickel. I don't know with his size if he has, the ability to tackle like a nickel requires to the next level yet. But his tape is very fun to watch, and I currently have his honorable mention. And then we have Blession Austin from Rutgers. Again, another guy that I think is coming up a lot of people's boards. It's been really good from Pro Football Focus standpoint. Good size, 6 feet, 190. And I think that with a strong end of the season, a strong combine, he could very well crack a top 10. But starting at number 10 on the official list, we have Derek Beatty, 6'3", 185 pounds, out of Kentucky. So far this year, he has 29 tackles, 1 interception, 6 pass deflections. Now, it's it does seem like over the last couple of years, teams are kind of going away from the Richard Sherman, the big zone type corners. There's still a spot for them, though. There's still a spot for them in the National Football League. And again, a lot of these bigger corners, the more and more you look at it, the more and more you got to think, well, the Legion of Boom's rebuilding. Are they going to want to try and do something, a different approach? Or are they just going to want to try to reload in that style that they have had? And Derek Beatty and the guy that we're going to talk about at number 9 both fit that Seattle Seahawk mode of that long, rangy zone-type corner. And Derek Beatty, big things, man. Kentucky defense has some playmakers. When was the last time we talked about anything Kentucky sports-related, and it wasn't about their basketball team? Their football team, they got some studs. Benny Snell on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, you got Josh Allen. I think Derek Beatty is a guy that could definitely be in that conversation. And I think for him, 3rd, 4th round, somewhere in that territory, depending on how well he runs. If he runs a faster time than expected with that length, could go up a couple rounds. Going to number 9 is going to be Jamal Peters, 6'2", 220 pounds, out of Mississippi State. So far in the season, he has 15 tackles, 0 interceptions, and 3 picks. When you're built like that, there's going to be teams that go, wow, this guy has great DB versatility. He can play probably a little bit of safety. That's what some teams are going to be envisioning. But he's been playing corner at Mississippi State. When I saw it, I was like, man, this guy's a safety, right? He's like, no, he's actually playing outside corner. And again, very much like Derek Beatty, I think fits into a zone team clearly. And, again, you got to look at the Seattle Seahawks, a team that's looking at reloading. I think a guy like Jamal Peters would be an excellent fit for there. And his versatility, I mean, they are looking for safeties too, with Earl Thomas gone pretty much, we can assume. Cam Chancellor gone, pretty much, you could assume. A guy like Jamal Peters' versatility and a scheme fit, I think he actually is a perfect fit for the Seattle Seahawks. Going to number 8 is going to be Iman Marshall, 6 feet tall, 205 pounds, out of USC. So far this season, he has 31 tackles, no interceptions, and 5 pass breakups. Been the best player, I think, out of the 3 USC games I've watched on the defensive side of the ball, which is kind of surprising because I am a big fan of the linebacker Cameron Smith. They got Christian Rector. He had Porter Gustin before his injury. But Iman Marshall was a guy that I was well aware of. I've used him in rebuilds for the last 2-3 years. He's really good, man. He's playing really well this season. I think that he's definitely boosted his draft stock enough that I think he's going to be in that 3rd, 4th round territory. Going to number 7, are we going to be drafting on speed? Because if we are, he could be one of these guys that after the 40-yard dash results are out, could just by that get a gigantic bump in his draft stock, which we have seen over the last couple of years because there has been slower corners, and the truly elite top-end fast ones help the draft stock out. And we're talking about it. Number 7, Kendall Sheffield, 5'11", 190 pounds, out of Ohio State. So far this season, he has 17 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 4 pass deflections. Again, Ohio State's one of those teams maybe on the outside looking in for the claim of DBU, but it does seem like when there is a very athletic corner from Ohio State, doesn't really matter what their production is. They are going to get drafted because everyone wants the next Marshawn Lattimore. Sometimes you get Marshawn Lattimore. Sometimes maybe it's a little too early, but sometimes you get a Garyon Conley. With Kendall Sheffield, I know you're getting great speed. He's going to be a guy that's definitely going to challenge to run for the fastest time at the upcoming combine. And his tape's not terrible. And I still think he's nowhere near as complete a project as we saw with Marshawn Lattimore coming out. But you definitely know he got good coaching and has a lot of upside is there and the athletic ability. You can't teach speed, and some teams get a gamble on that. I personally, from the tape, I see, maybe early 3rd round, late 2nd round. If he runs a really, really good combine, he could be, the inverse of that, early 2nd round, late 1st round. Going to corner number 6, we have Julian Love, 5'10", 190 pounds, out of Notre Dame. So far this season, he has 35 tackles, 1 interception, and 13 pass breakups. And last year, in 2016, this is when I took notice, he had 20 pass breakups. So he's well on his way, if he does declare to have well over 40 total pass breakups in his college career. And when you see that, you kind of question, why haven't you had more interceptions? Why aren't there more picks to your name? Maybe he does lack that ball skill, but he's just a ball hawk. He's constantly around the ball. He's a solid tackler, a guy that is most likely going to be suited to playing inside as a nickel corner. But he has all the traits that you look for in a really good nickel. I look at a team maybe like Pittsburgh, what they did with Mike Hilton. I think that right now is my player comp here for a Julian Love, and Mike Hilton is one of the better slot corners in the league, probably even top 5. I think at this point when he is healthy. I think Julian Love is going to be. It depends with that size, what he tests at the combine. But again, that's a lot of these guys. Pretty much everyone we're going to talk about. I'm not going to keep repeating myself. For cornerbacks in particular, it is probably one of the more important positions that you test well, or at least test up to what your perceived expectations are, or else your draft stock will take a hit. But I think if everything looks good for Julian Love, he should be a 2nd-round pick. Going to number 5, we have Armani Allen, 6'1", 205 pounds, out of Penn State. Currently has an 82.1 Pro Football Focus score with 40 tackles on the year, 2 interceptions, and 10 pass breakups. Now, I do know a lot of Penn State fans have kind of mixed reactions about, we're just going to cut him Armani, because they want that last name. Come on, change it. I heard a lot of Penn State fans say he's good. I've heard a lot of Penn State fans say he's overrated. So I believe that the common ground is somewhere in between that. From what I've seen out of the couple Penn State games, I have watched a couple of the clips. He looks good, man. He's your typical long-rangey corner. Don't know how fast he's going to be. Combine stock is going to be questionable. But as long as he doesn't run like a slow 4.5 or something in that range, I do think he'll be in that top 6 corners. I really do feel like that's the cutoff. And, first round talent, I'd say late 1st to mid 2nd, somewhere in that territory right now based off tape. Going to number 4 is going to be Trayvon Mullen, 6'1", 185 pounds, out of Clemson. Again, if you want traits, this is the trait guy because his production is not amazing. It's not bad. It's just this year's been a little bit slow. 14 tackles, no interceptions, and a pass deflection. Had a couple of pass breakups last year. He's just your freak athlete. He has the length that you want at 6'1". There's a chance. There is a legitimate shot that Trayvon Mullen runs in the 4.3s. And anytime you're a 6'1 corner that runs in the 4.3s, while, that little thing in the back of your head should be kind of picking up, like, is he the next Justin Gilbert? The long, rangy corner with great speed. Or everyone else just goes, wow, a 6'1 corner with that kind of speed. Just imagine what kind of superstar he's going to be. And I feel like a lot of teams are going to fall in love with that. From a tape standpoint, it's not bad. It's inconsistent, I would say. There's been corners, different style corners, but there's been corners that I've seen play better in the orange and white that haven't even been that great. Like Mackenzie Alexander, for example, on the Minnesota Vikings, had much better tape so far, in my opinion, than Trayvon Mullen. But again, not apples to oranges, but different styles of corners, different sizes and stuff like that. But I do think Trayvon Mullen, with that athletic ability, it is going to entice a lot of teams. I think it's definitely going to, bump up his draft stock. And I don't want to sound like I'm, shitting all over him, but for me, at least the tape, all I see is this guy's a good athlete, and he's going to get drafted upon that. And hey, he goes to a good DB room, goes to a team with a great DB coach, great defensive coordinator. They could view it as the sky's the limit. He's a project type player with unlimited upside. Going to cornerback number 3, we have Byron Murphy, 5'11", 180 pounds, out of Washington, currently with an 88.9 Pro Football Focus score, has 47 tackles, 1 interception, and 12 pass breakups. another school. Add him to the long list of teams that want to try to lay claim to DBU. Washington has had a lot of good defensive backs, especially over the last 5 years. Starting back, you got Marcus Peters, you had Sidney Jones. I feel like there's another one that I'm just missing off the top of my head. But Byron Murphy looks like the next in line. The only question here is I don't know if he can be an outside corner in the National Football League. Right now I see a slot guy, maybe an outside corner. I mean, I'm not, 5'11" is not, there's not that much of a difference between 5'11" and 6 feet, even though when you're talking about corners, it does. But I mean, 180 pounds, the weight is the concern for me if he can make that transition to be an outside guy. I think so. I think he has great instincts. I think he has enough athletic ability to make that transition. And I don't actually know how high I rate his tackling ability to be that nickel corner in the National Football League. But I think if he tests well at the combine, he will be a first-round pick. Comes from, a really good coach defense. And, yeah, should be the next guy, much in line to Marcus Peters and Sidney Jones to be a legitimate Washington grad cornerback at the National Football League level. Going to number 2, it is going to be DeAndre Baker, 5'11", 185 pounds, out of Georgia, currently with a 91.4 Pro Football Focus grade, which is the highest out of all the corners. So far on the year, he has 29 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 8 pass breakups. Best defensive back in the SEC. Asterisk, statistically, he's looked really good on tape for Georgia this year. The size is, The bigger question for me is, though, there's been a lot of concerns, somewhat limited, obviously, about how fast he's going to be. You see a guy that's 5'11", 185 pounds, you're going to assume, he's going to be in the 4.3s for sure. According to, I think it was Walter Football, some scouts think he's going to run the 4.5s, and if you're running the 4.5s and you're that size, oof. But, I mean, that is Walter Football. I'm not a huge fan of that website, so I don't want to put too much stock in that. He could have, Walter Football could report he's going to run a 4.5, and he ends at the combine run like a 4.43 or something that's very much acceptable for a guy of his body type. But I'm just saying, that is a concern right now, is that his top-end speed, his makeup speed, is not that great, and that's kind of one of the traits you look for in the quote-unquote undersized corner market. But the tape looks really, really good. Playing against a lot of good wide receivers, and he's shutting them down for the most part. And I definitely think DeAndre Baker is a top 20 talent right now based upon his tape, but I will be interested to see how well he tests at the combine. And for me, at number 1 of the cornerback spot, very simple. It's Greedy Williams, 6'2", 185 pounds from LSU. So far this season, he has 27 tackles, 2 interceptions, 5 pass breakups, and just for a reminder, in 2016, he did have 6 interceptions. Teams now are just straight up avoiding him. They're not throwing it his way. He's one of the best corners I've seen. I actually would probably rate him as my number 1 corner over the last 3 years. He is that damn good. He has all the traits. He has good athletic ability, great size. He's a ball hawk. He can shut down guys. There's no real weakness to his game. And I literally think the only weakness to his game is you put an elite speed guy. If you put a truly elite speed guy, there's not a whole lot of them. He's not going to be going up against Tyreek Hill every week. He's a guy that I think can start day 1 as a corner, and for right now, I have him as a top 5 talent. I don't know if he's, like you said, it's tough to say when you say a guy's a top 5 talent. If they're actually going to go in the top 5, you don't know what the needs are going to be of the teams that are picking there. But for me, Greedy Williams, all day, top 5 talent in this year's draft class. So there you go, guys. Those are my cornerback rankings. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of them in the comment section below. If I slept on one of your favorite players, didn't mention them, let me know. Next up, I think will be the linebackers, and then we'll finish with the safeties. I kind of skipped the linebackers for whatever reason. I don't know why. So make sure you tune back in for that. That does it for me today, guys. Thank you for watching, and until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.